Hello and welcome back to the Core Learning channel. Today we're going to be looking at negative powers. The prerequisites for today are expanding powers and collecting like terms. These are going to become important for some of the questions later on. So let's jump into it. So unlike some of the other rules that we've gone over, I'd say this is probably the least intuitive, but you kind of just have to try and memorize this one. So if you have a number a to the power of minus x, this is equivalent to 1 over the power of a to the x. So just to show you what that looks like in practice with a few examples. So if we took 2 to the power of minus 3, this is going to be equal to 1 over 2 to the power of 3, which is obviously 1 over 8. If we had 3 to the power of minus 2, this is going to be equal to 1 over 3 to the power of 2, which is 1 over 9. Hopefully you're starting to pick up the pattern now. So we've got 2 to the power of minus 5 is 1 over 2 to the power of 5, which is 1 over 32. And then we've got 2 more, which you can look over, but I won't spend any time going through that. I think you can kind of see what the rule is by now. So as always, it's a good idea to know how to derive these rules. So we start with the rule itself. So we've got a to the power of minus x equals 1 over a to the power of x. So how do we get this? Well, we're going to start by using the multiplying powers rule. What we're going to do is we're going to create an equation using a to the power of minus x. So in this case, we're going to multiply a to the power of minus x by a to the power of x. So when we do this, using the multiplying powers rule, we know that we're going to add the exponents together. So this is going to be a to the power of minus x plus x. Minus x plus x is just a to the power of 0. Then, using our raising to the power of 0 rule, we know anything to the power of 0 is just 1. This means the equation a to the power of minus x times a to the power of x is 1. Now the next step is we're going to make a to the power of minus x the subject of this equation. When we do that, we take the a to the power of x and we move it to the other side, and we know when we're multiplying, when it moves to the other side, it goes across as a divide. So what we're left with is a to the power of minus x equals 1 over a to the power of x. So without further ado, let's jump into some practice questions. So like always, I'm going to display the questions, and then when you're ready, pause the video, have a go at these, and then when you're ready, unpause the video and we'll go through them one by one. So hopefully you've had a good go at those. Let's start from the top. So we have 2 to the power of minus 1. Well, using the rule we've discussed, this is going to be equal to 1 divided by 2 to the power of 1. And 2 to the power of 1 is just 2. So this is a half. Next, we have 3 to the power of minus 3. So this is 1 over 3 cubed, which would be 1 over 27. So I think I've just left it as 1 over 3 cubed here. Next, we have 5 to the power of minus 4. So this is going to be 1 over 5 to the power of 4. Next, we have 10 to the power of minus 2. So this is going to be 1 over 10 squared. Moving to the other side, we have 4 to the power of minus 4. So this is going to be 1 over 4 to the power of 4. Next one, 1 over 100 squared. Next one, 1 over 3 to the power of 30. And lastly, 1 over 6 cubed. So we're now going to look at some slightly trickier questions. What I'm going to do before I let you loose on these is work through the first one together, as you may not have come across these type of questions before. So the key thing really to understand here is that we need to separate out the terms, which is something we've done quite a lot in the different videos on powers and roots. So the key thing to understand is that this to the power of minus 2 is only applied to the x. It doesn't apply to the 2. So when we're looking at our negative powers rule, we only consider this for the part of this equation which is x to the power of minus 2. So what this becomes, if we separate this out, we have our number term which is 2. So this 2 remains where it is, but now we can apply our negative powers rule to the portion that is x to the power of minus 2. What this gives us is 2 divided by x squared. So, as usual, now that I've explained this, hopefully you feel okay having a go at the rest of these yourselves. So pause the video, have a go at the questions, and then when you're ready, come back and we'll talk through the answers. So hopefully you've managed to get through those okay. We'll now go from the second question. So we're going to separate out the terms in this and go through them one by one. So our number term here is 3. Now the 3 doesn't have a power attached to it, so it stays as it is. We have an x cubed. Again, this can't be simplified, so this is going to just stay where it is. Now the y to the power of minus 2, we can apply our negative powers rule here. So same as before, we have y to the power of minus 2, so using our negative powers rule, this is 1 over y squared. Pulling this all together, this gives us 3x cubed over y squared. Moving on to the next one, we have 3 to the, times x to the power of minus 1, y to the power of minus 3. Again, we start with our number term. Our number term has nothing attached to it, so it just stays where it is. We now have 2 negative power terms. So the x to the power of minus 1 using the negative powers rule becomes 1 over x to the power of 1, which simplified is just 1 over x. We also have y to the power of minus 3, which becomes 1 over y cubed using the negative powers rule. Bringing this all together, we get 3 over xy cubed. Moving on to the next one. Now we have to be a little bit careful. So previously, we had a power term that was applied to a specific part of the equation, a specific variable. In this case, this minus 1 is applied to the whole term for xy. So we have to apply the negative powers rule, not to each component individually, but to the 4xy as a whole. So doing this, it's actually quite simple. This just becomes 1 over 4xy. Moving on to the next one, we have 2 to the power of minus 2 y squared. Starting with our number term, well, we have 2 to the power of minus 2, so we can use our negative powers rule here. So 2 to the minus 2 becomes 1 over 2 squared, which is 1 over 4. The y squared we can leave as it is. So this becomes y squared over 2 squared, or y squared over 4 if you go a step further and simplify it. Now we're starting to introduce some more terms in the next one, but it's exactly the same principle. So we have the number term 5. This has nothing applied to it, so we can just leave this as it is. Now we have our x term. So we have x to the power of minus 2. Well, we can use our negative powers rule here. So this becomes 1 over x squared. We then have our y term, which is y to the power of minus 3. Again, we can apply our negative powers rule, which is 1 over y cubed. And our last term is z, which is z squared. This can be left as it is. So on our numerator, we have 5z squared. And then on our denominator, we have x squared y cubed. Now, for these last two, these are quite tricky, so I'm going to actually address these separately. So, starting from the first question, we have a squared x squared y to the power of minus 4, all to the power of minus 2. So what we're going to do is break this down. So as we discussed, we have this whole term raised to the power of minus 2. So we can immediately apply our negative powers rule to this whole equation. When we do this, we get 1 divided by 8 squared x squared y to the minus 4 squared. So what we're going to do now, let's break down the denominator here. So we have 8 squared x squared y to the power of minus 4 all squared. Well, what does this mean? Well, this is just saying we need 8 squared x squared y to the minus 4 times 8 squared x squared y to the minus 4. What we can do now is use the concept of separating out terms or collecting like terms, which we've done plenty of times across multiple videos. So we collect the number terms, then the x terms, then the y terms, and then we can use our multiplying powers rule. So when we do this, we have 8 squared times 8 squared, then we have x squared times x squared, and then we have y to the minus 4 times y to the minus 4. Well, using our multiplying powers rule, 8 squared times 8 squared, we just add the powers, so we get 8 to the power of 4. Likewise with the x's, this gives us x to the 4. And then we have y to the power of minus 4 plus, we have minus 4 plus minus 4 for the y term, and this gives us y to the power of minus 8. So putting this all together, we can simplify this down further to get 1 over 8 to the power of 4, x to the power of 4, y to the power of minus 8. There's one more step we can take here, which is that we still notice that we have a negative term. So we don't really want this in our final answer. So what can we do about this? Well, we can use our negative powers rule. So our negative powers rule, we have a to the power of minus x equals 1 over a to the power of x. But we can also rearrange this. So if we rearrange the formula, we get a to the power of x equals 1 over a to the power of minus x. Well, we could rewrite this equation, the 1 over 8 to the power of 4x to the power of 4y to the minus 8. We could write this as 1 divided by 8 to the 4 x to the 4 multiplied by 1 divided by y to the minus 8. And if we took that 1 divided by 1 to the minus 8, well, this is analogous to the right-hand side of this negative powers rule. So instead of 1 over a to the minus x, it's 1 over y to the minus 8. Using this rule, that means that that should be equal to y to the power of 8. So we can rewrite this as y to the power of 8 on top, and then divided by 8 to the power of 4x to the power of 4. So when we have a negative term, we can make it a positive by just moving it to the other side of the fraction. Now, moving on to the second question. Hopefully, after doing that first part, you might feel more confident about doing this one, as it follows exactly the same logic. So, we have this whole term, 10 times x to the power of minus 1, y to the minus 2. All of this is to the power of minus 1. So we can apply this whole thing, the negative powers rule. Doing this, we get 1 over 10x to the power of minus 1, y to the power of minus 2, all raised to the power of 1. Using the power of 1 rule, we know that anything to the power of 1 just returns itself. So, simplified, we get 1 over 10 to the power of x minus 1, y minus 2. Now, using the same concept we've just discussed above, both the x term and the y term on the bottom are negatives. So we can simplify this by moving them to the top and changing the minus sign to a positive sign. When we do this, this becomes xy squared divided by 10. So hopefully that made sense. So thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video and learnt something today. If anything is unclear or you have any questions, leave a comment and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you at the next one.